Good morning, we're from Group 1, and today we're going to do a presentation about diversity and attitudes and job satisfaction. First, we're going to be discussing about diversity. Our group consists of Arif Naufal Rahman, Muhammad Aflah Faidan, Sabrina Nur Cahya Tanjung, Joel James Suryanto, and myself, Nandana Makarim Himawan. Next slide, please. Diversity. First, I'm going to be discussing about demographic characteristics. The predominantly white male managerial workforce of the past has given way to a gender-balanced multi-ethnic workforce. For example, first, by 2014, women comprised 47%. Both in the United States and internationally, women today are much more likely than before to be employed full-time, have an advanced education, and earn wages comparable to those of men. The earning gap between white and other racial and ethnic groups in the United States has decreased significantly, partially due to the rising number of minorities in the workforce. Workers over the age of 55 are an increasingly large portion of the workforce, as well both in the United States and globally. Currently in Australia, there are more workers over age 55 than under age 25, and that shift is set to continue. And lastly, these changes are increasingly reflected in the makeup of managerial and professional jobs. This change also means organizations must make diversity management an essential component of their policies and practice. And here are the levels of diversity. The first level is surface level diversity. Surface level diversity means differences in easily perceived characteristics such as gender, race, ethnicity, age, or disability that do not necessarily reflect the ways people think or feel, but that may activate certain stereotypes. The second type is deep level diversity, means differences in values, personality, and work preferences that become progressively more important for determining similarity as people get to know one another better. And the last type is discrimination, noting of a difference between things. Often we refer to unfair discrimination, which means making judgments about individuals based on stereotypes regarding their demographic group. Next slide, please. Discrimination. Discrimination first consists of a stereotype threat. A stereotype threat is the degree to which we internally agree with the generally negative stereotype perception of our groups. Stereotype threat has serious implications for the workplace. Employees who feel it may have lower performance, lower satisfaction, negative job attitude, decreased engagement, decreased motivation, higher absenteeism, more health issues, and high turnover in tension. The following organizational changes can be successful in reducing stereotypes threat. The first is increasing awareness of how stereotypes may be perpetuated. Second, reducing differential and preferential treatment through objective assessment. Banning stereotype practice and messages. And lastly, confronting microaggression against minority groups and adopting transparent that signal the value of all employees. And here are the types of discrimination in the workplace. The first type is discriminatory policies or practices, action taken by representatives or of the organization that deny equal opportunity to perform or unequal rewards or performance. The second type is sexual harassment, means unwanted sexual advances and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature that create a hostile or offensive work environment. Next is intimidation, overt threats or bullying directed at members of specific group of employees. Mockeries and insult means jokes or negative stereotypes, sometimes the result of jokes taken too far. Exclusion means exclusion of certain people from job opportunities, social events, discussions, or informal mentoring can occur unintentionally. And lastly, incivility, disrespectful treatment, including behaving in an aggressive manner, interrupting the person, or ignoring his or her opinion. Next slide, please.
All right, for the next slide is biographical characteristics. Reaching the workforce is likely to be an issue of increasing importance during the next decade for many reasons. For one, the workforce is aging worldwide in most developed countries, 17 by projections. 93% of the growth in labor force from 2006 to 2016 will have come from workers over the age of 54. The stereotypes of older workers as being behind the times, grumpy, and inflexible are changing. Managers often see a number of positive qualities older workers bring to their jobs, such as experience, judgment, a strong work ethic, and commitment to equality. Some company reports that 27% of its workforce is over the age of 55 because older workers bring more workforce stability. And industries like healthcare, education, government, and nonprofits often welcome older workers. But older workers are still perceived as less adaptable and less motivated to learn new technology. And now I'm going to discuss about how age affects turnover, absenteeism, productivity, and satisfaction. Regarding turnover, the older you are, the less likely you are to quit your job. As workers get older, they have fewer alternate job opportunities because their skills have become more specialized. It may seem likely that age is positively correlated to absenteeism, but this isn't true. Most studies show that older employees have lower rates of avoidable absence versus younger employees. Furthermore, older workers do not have more psychological problems or day-to-day physical problems than younger workers. A few studies indicate that older adults perform better and that the older workers seem to know better how to avoid severe errors. Related to performance, there is a conception that creativity lessens as people age. Researcher David Gallinson, who studied the age of peak creativity, found that people who create through experimentation do their greatest works in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Regarding to satisfaction, a review of more than 800 studies found that older workers tend to be more satisfied with their work, report better relationships with coworkers, and are more committed to their organizations. Other studies, however, have found that job satisfaction increases up to the middle age, at which point it begins to drop off. Next is sex. A few issues initiate more debates, misconceptions, and unsupported opinions than whether woman performs well on jobs as men. The best place to begin is to consider this is with the recognition that few, if any, differences between men and women affect job performance. Though men have slightly better higher math ability and women slightly higher verbal ability, the differences are very small, and there are no consistent male female differences in problem solving ability, analytical skills, or learning ability. Yet biases and stereotypes persist. In the hiring realm, managers are influenced by gender bias. When selecting candidates for certain positions, for instance, men are preferred in hiring decisions for male dominated occupations, particularly when men are doing the hiring. Once on the job, men and women may be offered a similar number of developmental experiences. But females are less likely to be assigned challenging positions by men, assignments that could help them achieve higher organizational positions. Moreover, men are more likely to be chosen for leadership roles, even though men and women are equally effective leaders. Next is race and ethnicity. Race is a in controversial issue in society and in organizations. We define race as the heritage people use to identify themselves. Ethnicity is the additional set of cultural characteristics that often overlaps with race. Race and ethnicity have been studied as they relate to employment outcomes such as hiring decisions, performance evaluations, pay, and workplace discrimination. Individuals may slightly favor colleagues of their own race in performance evaluation, promotion decisions, and pay raises. Although such differences are not found consistently, especially when highly structured methods of decision making are employed. Finally, members of racial and ethnic minorities report higher levels of discrimination in the workplace. African American generally fare worse than white employees' decisions. This is for in the United States. They receive lower ratings in employment interviews, lower job performance ratings, less pay, and fewer promotions. An individual of minority status is much less likely to leave the organization if there's a feeling of inclusiveness, known as a positive diversity climate. A positive diversity climate can lead to increased sales, suggesting there's an organizational performance gains associated with reducing racial and ethnic discrimination. Now, how do we move beyond the destructiveness of discrimination? The answer is in understanding one another's viewpoint.
Next is about other differentiating characteristic. The first one is tenure. Tenure is time spent in a job, organization, or field. It can result in seniority productivity relationship. Tenure is expressed as work experience, which can often indicate of their productivity level. However, there's some evidence that their relationship is not linear. Uh, the differences in tenure are more important to job performance for relatively new employees and like inexperienced employees than among those who have been on a job longer. The second one is religion. Conflicts can occur between religious, non-religious people or between people with different beliefs. Uh, that could cause religion discrimination in some companies. That's why the law prohibits employers to discriminate based on religion in many countries. Faith could be an employment issue wherever the religious behavior prohibits or encourage certain behavior. They also, religious people may also believe that they have an obligation to express their beliefs in their workplace, and those who do not may object and cause like um, conflict. Next, please.
Other differentiating characteristic is sexual orientation and gender identity. One of the sexual orientation and gender identity that usually always be a problem is LGBT. And what is the problem among organizations? There is a discrimination among employees. It is often that people who has been revealed their sexual orientation, especially LGBT, experience a discrimination. Discrimination could impact organization, such as organization performance. However, sexual orientation and gender identity remain individual differences. Even sexual orientation is actually a privacy, but many people that still concerned about this. So organizations must address in eliminating discrimination and promoting diversity. There are some solutions that some companies must do or have to do is for the example is United States, the federal government has prohibited discrimination against government employees based on sexual orientation. And then many organizations have implemented policies and procedures that cover sexual orientation. And then there is cultural identity. We have seen that people sometimes define themselves in terms of race and ethnicity. People select their cultural identity as well as how closely they stick to that culture standard. The workplace is sometimes influenced by cultural norms. Sometimes it can make a clash, sometimes it can make a strong team. However, because of globalization and shifting labor markets, today's business do a good job of understanding and respecting their employees' cultural identities, both as groups and as individuals. Next, please. Ability. What does ability mean? Ability means an individual's capacity to perform the various tasks in a job. Ability is made up of two factors. First, intellectual abilities, and second is physical abilities. First, intellectual abilities. Intellectual abilities are the capacity to do mental activities, such as memory, comprehension, reasoning, analyzing, and problem solving. There are 7 most aspects that make up intellectual skills that are most commonly mentioned. First, there is number aptitude, which is ability to do speedy and accurate arithmetic. And then verbal comprehension, which is the ability to understand what is read or heard and the relationship of words to each other. And then perceptual speed, ability to identify visual similarities and differences quickly and accurately. And then inductive reasoning, ability to identify a logical sequence in a problem and then solve them. And then there is deductive reasoning, which is ability to use logic and assess the implication of an argument. And then spatial visualization, which is ability to imagine how an object would look if its position in space were changed. And then last, there is memory, which is the ability to retain and recall past experiences. The example of intellectual ability for the example is verbal comprehension. The job example is plan manager, which plan manager have to following corporate policies on hiring. And then second, there is physical abilities. Physical abilities is the capacity to do tasks that demand stamina, dexterity, strength, and similar characteristics. Employees need to have certain abilities that will make them a valuable addition to an organization. Based on the research on hundreds of jobs has identified 9 basic abilities needed in the performance of physical tasks. First, there is dynamic strength. It is the ability to exert muscular force repeatedly and continuously over time. And then trunk strength. It is the ability to exert muscular strength using the trunk. And then there is static strength. It is the ability to exert force against external objects. And then there is explosive strength. It is the ability to expend a maximum of energy in one or a series of explosive acts. And then there is extend flexibility, which is the ability to move the trunk and back muscle as far as possible. And then there is dynamic flexibility, ability to make rapid, repeated flexing movements. And then there is body coordination, which is the ability to coordinate the simultaneous actions of different part of body. And then there is balance, which is the ability to maintain equilibrium despite forces pulling off balance. And last but not least, there is stamina, which is the ability to continue maximum effort requiring prolonged effort over time. For the example of work that really needs physical ability is soldier. They must have a good physical strength, especially stamina.
Next is implementing diversity management strategies. What is diversity management? Diversity management is the process and programs that makes everyone aware and more sensitive of the differences of others. Next, on attracting, selecting, developing, and retaining diverse employees. Why should we attract, selecting, developing, and retaining diverse employees? Because in the process of selecting an employees, managers should have value fairness and objectivity on their and their potential for productivity, not based on their demographic transition. Based on their demographic characteristic. So it makes sense if the company of homogeneous demographic might miss out on some of the opportunities of the minorities demographic. How should the companies attract, select, and developing and retaining diverse employees? Research has shown that women and minorities have greater interest in employee that make special effort to highlight a commitment to diversity in their recruiting materials. This means placing advertisement in publications geared toward those groups, pairing with colleges, universities, and other institutions with significant number of underrepresented minorities. The examples are Etsy, an online retailer, hosts engineering classes and provides grant for aspiring women coders, and then hires the best. McKinsey Company and Bain Company have been actively recruiting women who left the workforce to start families by offering phase-in programs and other benefits. Microsoft encouraging women into technological studies and forming partnership with associations like the Society of Women Engineers or the National Minority Supplier Development Council. And how to retain the diverse employees. The retention of the minorities of demographic can be done through selecting more minorities in the organization, so that the minorities can feel moral commitment to the organization and prevent them from leaving the organization. Next slide. The diversity in groups. One thing that I should clarify is that the diversity in groups that really matters is not the diversity in demographic characteristics like gender, sexual preferences, religion, or so on. But the diversity that really matters is the diversity of the set of individuals in the group. For example, is a team of individuals who are highly intelligent, conscientious, and interested in working in team settings are more effective. And diversity on uh, experts or such things, they are more effective rather than a group that have diversity and demographic, but that doesn't have any interest in working in teamwork. But also the most important factor for a group is to emphasize the similarities among members. Managers who emphasize the higher order goals and values in their leadership style are more effective in managing diverse teams. Next slide. Effective diversity programs. An effective diversity program have three distinct components. First, they teach managers about the legal framework for equal employment opportunity and encourage fair treatment of all people, regardless of their demographic characteristic. Second, they teach managers how a diverse workforce will be better able to serve a diverse market of customers and clients. Third, they foster personal development practices that bring out the skills and ability of all workers, acknowledging how differences in perspective can be a valuable way to improve performance and everyone. And that's it for our group in chapter 2. Thank you for listening.
The next material that we will be discussing is attitudes and job satisfaction. Next slide, please. Attitudes. Attitude means evaluative statements or judgments concerning objects, people, or events. Cognitive component is the opinion or belief segment of an attitude. Behavioral component is an intention to behave in a certain way towards someone or something. In organization, attitudes are important for their behavioral component. If workers believe, for example, that managers, auditors, and engineers are in conspiracy to make employees work harder for less money, we should try to understand how this attitude forms, how it impacts job behavior, and how it might be changed. Next slide, please. Attitudes and behavior. Cognitive dissonance means any incompatibility between two or more attitudes or between behavior and attitudes. People seek consistency among their attitudes and between their attitudes and their behavior. Any form of inconsistency is uncomfortable, and individuals will therefore attempt to reduce it. People seek a stable state, which is a minimum of dissonance. When there is a dissonance, people will alter either the attitude or the behavior. The desire to reduce dissonance depends on three factors, including the importance of the elements, the degree of influence we believe we have over the elements, and lastly, factor is the reward of dissonance. High reward accompanying high dissonance tend to reduce tension inherent in the dissonance. The most powerful moderators of the attitudes relationships are the importance of the attitude, its correspondence to behavior, its accessibility, the presence of social pressure, and whether a person has direct experience with the attitude. Next slide, please. Job attitudes, job satisfaction, and job involvement. First is job satisfaction means a person with a high job satisfaction holds positive feelings about the work, while a person with low satisfaction holds negative feelings. Job involvement is the degree to which a person identifies with the job, actively participates in it, and considers performance important to self-worth. Employees with high job involvement strongly identify with and really care about the kind of work they do. Psychological empowerment means employees believe in the degree to which they affect their work environment, their competence, their meaningfulness of their job, autonomy in their work. Research suggests that the empowerment initiative needs to be tailored to desired behavioral outcomes. And lastly is organizational commitment. Organizational commitment is a degree to which an employee identifies with a particular organization and its goals and wishes to maintain membership in the organization. Employees who are committed will be less likely to engage in work withdrawal, or even if they are dissatisfied, because they have a sense of organizational loyalty or attachment. Even if employees are not currently happy with their work, they are willing to make sacrifices for the organization if they are committed enough. Next slide, please.
See, perceived organizational support, which can be shortened to POS. It is the degree which employees believe that their company values their contribution and also cares about their well-being. People feel their organization as supportive when they think that the rewards that are given are fair. Also, employees have voice in decisions and also supportive supervisors for them. POS is important in countries where there are power distance, is when people in that country accept that power in institution and organizations are distributed unequally. D, employee engagement. Employee engagement is an individual involvement with satisfaction with and enthusiasm for work. To evaluate engagement, we might ask employees whether they have access to resources or opportunities offered by the company. The two reasons for management engagement, two reasons for job engagement are: the first one is having a good manager they will enjoy working for, and number two is feeling appreciated by their supervisor. Um, yeah. E, are these job attitudes really that distinct? There is some distinctiveness among attitude, but they overlap greatly for various reasons, including the employee's personality. Generally, if you know someone's level of job satisfaction, what uh, you know most of what you need to know about how that person see their organization that they are working for. Next slide, please. Job satisfaction. Measuring job satisfaction. First, job satisfaction is a positive feeling about a job resulting from an evaluation of its characteristic. There are two popular approaches. The first one is single global rating. It focuses on level of satisfaction of the employee. You can take an example if the employee must rate their satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 5. And the second approach is the summation of job facets. It identifies the key elements of a job, such as type of work, skills, supervision, present pay, promotion opportunities, culture, and also relationship.
How satisfied are people in their jobs? Job satisfaction levels can remain quite consistent over time. However, economic conditions tend to influence job satisfaction rates. The facets of job satisfaction levels can vary widely. As shown in the graph above, people have typically been more satisfied with their jobs overall, the work itself, and their supervisors and coworkers than they have been with their pay and promotion opportunities, as you can see in the graph on the left side. On the right side, we can see um, the worldwide satisfaction graphs. And it has shown that Mexico is one of the highest satisfaction jobs out there. So, do employees in these cultures have better jobs, or are they simply more positive? It is difficult to discern all the factors influencing the scores, but considering how businesses are responding to change brought on globalization may give us clues. What causes job satisfaction? A. Interesting jobs that provide training, variety, and independence and control satisfy most employees. Interdependence, feedback, social support, and interaction with coworkers outside the workplace also strongly related to job satisfaction, even after accounting for characteristics for the work itself. Managers also play a big role in employees' job satisfaction. Employees who feel empowered by their leaders experience higher job satisfaction. As important as job conditions are to job satisfaction, personality also plays an important role. People who have positive core, core self-evaluation or CSEs who believe in their inner worth and basic competence are more satisfied with their jobs than people with negative CSEs. Additionally, in context of career commitment, CSE influences job satisfaction as people with high levels of both CSE and career commitment may realize particularly high job satisfaction. Pay does, pay does correlate with job satisfaction and overall happiness for many people, but the effect can be smaller once an individual reaches a standard level of comfortable living. Well, what motivates us is not necessarily the same as what makes us happy, and it can be proven on the graph on the right side.
Then there is CSR. The correlation of CSR and job satisfaction only exists in people that have the same personal values fit the the organization CSR mission. Uh, it's the job satisfaction correlates strongly to millennials, a generation who are focused on triple bottom lines: people, revenue, and planet. But also there is issues that needs to be addressed regarding CSR. That not all employees feel CSR are meaningful, but yet all of them have to participate. The second, employees are required to behave in unnatural behavior. The third is the CSR measures that are disconnected from workers' actual work. Next, the outcomes of job satisfaction. Next. Job performance. As you can see from the slide, it's happy workers equal productive workers. So that the more satisfied we are at jobs, the more productive we are at work. It has been reviewed by 300 studies that the correlation of job performance and job satisfaction is quite robust. Next. Then there's OCB, organizational citizenship behavior. The example of OCBs are talking nicely about the organization, helping others, or even working late voluntarily because they love the organization so much. Why would the job satisfaction correlate with the organization, the OCB? First, there are trust from the managers. If the employees are doing OCBs, then the managers are giving the employees more trust. The second is supportive co-workers. The more supportive co-workers are equals that we are doing more OCB work. The third is different personality traits of employees of worker. The personality trait of agreeable and consensus personality can equal more doing OCB work. Next. Then there's customer satisfaction. The more satisfied we are at our job, the more customer who are satisfied and loyal to our company. The evidence is that Zappo employees are empowered to create fun and little weirdness that makes them satisfied at their job to ensure that the customers are satisfied. The results are out of the 24 million customers that Zappo have, 75% of them are the customer are repeat buyers. Next. Life satisfaction. Well, we might think that life and job satisfaction are treated differently, but according to research in Europe, job satisfaction positively correlated with life satisfaction. Furthermore, attitudes and experiences in life can spill over to your job approaches and experiences. Furthermore, research in Germany indicate that life satisfaction will decrease when you become unemployed. It makes sense because job is an important part of life for most people. Next.
Impact of job dissatisfaction. The impact of job dissatisfaction. What happens when employees dislike their jobs? There are 4 response or possibilities that employees feel dissatisfaction or dislike their job. First response is exit. The dissatisfaction expressed through behavior directed toward leaving the organization. And then second response is voice. The dissatisfaction of their job expressed through active and constructive attempts to improve condition. The third response is loyalty. It is the opposite of the voice, which dissatisfaction expressed by passively waiting for conditions to improve. And then last response, there is neglect. Dissatisfaction expressed through allowing conditions to worsen. Next. The other impact of job dissatisfaction is counterproductive work behavior. What is counterproductive work behavior? It is actions that actively damage the organization. For the example, there are substance abuse, stealing at work, undue socializing, gossiping, absenteeism, and tardiness. Job dissatisfaction makes people frustrated with their work and more likely to commit with counterproductive work behavior, which this can be lower their performance and may lower organization performance. But there are steps that manager can do in order to mitigate counterproductive work behavior. First, managers can do poll employee attitudes and identify areas for workplace improvement. And then maybe the managers tailoring tasks so a person's abilities and values can be exercised. And then creating strong teams, integrating supervisors with them, providing formalized team policies, and introducing team-based incentives. Next. That's all from our group. Thanks for the attention. If you have any question, feel free to ask.